Hey guys, Nikki here with the inside story. Sorry, I'm gonna move you guys just a minute. Okay, I think that's okay. My hair is a little crazy. I just got a shower. So hello, we are here for chapter 5 today of Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood. I'm really enjoying this book so far, and I like being in another Sarah J. Maas world. She is an incredible world builder. So I am really excited to be back in another world, and I just want to see how things, come together in this one for Bryce and Danica. So this is chapter 5, Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood. This one I am reading on my phone, so this one it does say it's 38 pages long. So it shouldn't be too bad. Alright, let's get started. Chapter 5. Going on a date with Connor in a few days didn't mean she had to behave. So within the inner sanctum of the White Raven, Bryce savored every delight it offered. Fury knew the owner, Riso, either through work or whatever the hell she did in her personal life, and as such, they never had to wait in line. The flamboyant butterfly shifter always left a booth open for them. None of the smiling, colorfully dressed waiters who brought over their drinks so much as blinked at the lines of glittering white powder. Fury arranged with a sweep of her hand or the plumes of smoke that rippled from Bryce's parted lips as she tipped her head back to the dome-mirrored ceiling and laughed. Juniper had a studio class at dawn, so she abstained from the powder and smoke and booze, but it didn't stop her from sneaking away for a good 20 minutes with a broad-chested fey male who took in the dark brown skin, the exquisite face, and curling black hair, the long legs that ended in delicate hooves, and practically begged on his knees for the fawn to touch him. Bryce reduced herself into the pulsing beat of the music, to the euphoria glittering through her blood faster than an angel diving out of the sky, to the sweat sliding down her body as she writhed on the ancient dance floor. She would barely be able to walk tomorrow, would have half a brain, but holy shit, more. Laughing, she swooped over the low-lying table in their private booth between two half-crumbling pillars. Laughing, she arched away, a red nail releasing its hold on one nostril as she sagged against the dark leather bench. Laughing, she knocked back water and elderberry wine and stumbled again into the dancing throng. Life was good. Life was fucking good. And she couldn't goddamn wait to make the drop with Danica and do this until the earth crumbled into dust. She found Juniper dancing amid a pack of sylph females celebrating a friend's successful job. Their silvery heads were adorned with circlets of neon glow sticks, chock full of their friend's designated allotment of her own first light, which she generated when she successfully completed the job. Juniper had managed to swipe a glow stick halo for herself, and her hair shone with blue light as she extended her hands to Bryce, their fingers linking as they danced. Bryce's blood pulsed in time to the music, as if she had been crafted just for this. The moment when she became the notes and rhythm in the bass, when she became song given form. Juniper's glittering eyes told Bryce that she understood, and always understood, the particular freedom and joy and unleashing that came from dancing. Like their bodies were so full of sound they could barely contain it, could barely stand it, and only dance could express it, ease it, and honor it. Males and females gathered to watch their lust coating Bryce's skin like sweat. Juniper's every movement matched hers without so much as a lick of hesitation, as if they were question and answer, sun and moon. Quiet, pretty Juniper, Andromeda, the exhibitionist, even dancing in the sacred ancient heart of the Raven. She was sweet and mild, but she shone. Or maybe that was all the light seeker Bryce had ingested up her nose. Her hair clung to her sweaty neck. Her feet were utterly numb thanks to the steep angle of her heels. Her throat was ravaged from screaming along to the songs that blasted through the club. She managed to shoot a few messages to Danica in one video, because she could barely read any of what was coming in anyway. She'd be so royally fucked if she showed up at work tomorrow unable to read. Time slowed and bled, here dancing among the pillars and upon the time-warm stones of the temple that had been reborn. No time existed at all. Maybe she would live here. Quit her job at the gallery and live in the club. They could hire her to dance in one of the steel cages dangling from the glass ceilings high above the temple ruins that made up the dance floor. They certainly wouldn't spew bullshit about a wrong body type. No, they'd pay her to do what she loved, what made her come alive like nothing else. It seemed like a reasonable enough plan, Bryce thought as she stumbled down her own street later with no recollection of leaving the Raven. Saying goodbye to her friends, or of how the hell she'd even gotten here. A taxi? She'd blown all her marks on the drugs, unless someone has paid. Whatever, she'd think about it tomorrow, if she could even sleep. She wanted to stay awake to dance for goddamn ever. Only, oh, her feet fucking hurt, and they were near black and sticky. Bryce paused outside her building door and groaned as she unstrapped her heels and gathered them in a hand. A code. Her building had a code to get in. Bryce contemplated the keypad as if it opened a pair of eyes and tell her. Some buildings did that. Shit. She pulled out her phone, the glaring screen light burning her eyes. Squinting, she could make out a dozen message alerts. They blurred, her eyes trying and failing to focus enough to read one single coherent letter. Even if she somehow managed to call Danica, her friend would rip her head off. The screech of the building buzzer would piss off Danica even more. Bryce cringed, hopping from foot to foot. What was the code? The code. Oh, there it was, tucked into a back pocket of her mind. She cheerfully punched in the numbers and then heard the buzz as the lock opened with a faint, tinny sound. She scowled at the reek of the stairwell. That goddamn janitor, she'd kick his ass, impale him with these useless cheap stilettos that had wrecked her feet. Bryce set a bare foot on the stairs and winced. This was going to hurt. Walking on glass hurt. She let her heels clunk to the tile floor, whispering a fervent promise to find them tomorrow, and gripped the black painted metal banister with both hands. Maybe she could straddle the banister and scoot herself up the stairs. God, it stunk. What did the people in this building eat? Or for that matter, who did they eat? Hopefully not wasted, stupid, high, half-fae females who couldn't manage to walk up the stairs. If Fury had laced the Lightseeker with something else, she'd fucking kill her. Snorting at the idea of even attempting to kill the infamous Fury Axter, Bryce hauled herself up the stairs, step by step. She debated sleeping on the second-level landing, but the stench was overwhelming. Maybe she'd get lucky and Connor would still be at the apartment, and then she'd really get lucky. Gods, she wanted good sex. No holds barred, scream your lungs out sex. Break the bed sex. She knew Connor would be like that. More than that. He'd go far beyond the physical with him. It might honestly melt whatever was left of her mind after tonight. It was why she'd been a coward, why she'd avoided thinking about it from the moment he learned he'd lean in her doorway 5 years ago, having come to say hi to Danica and meet her new roommate, and they just stared at each other. Having Connor living 4 doors down freshman year had been the worst sort of temptation, but Danica had given the order to stay away until Bryce approached him, and even though they hadn't yet formed a pack of devils, Connor obeyed. It seemed Danica had lifted the order tonight. Lovely, wicked Danica. Bryce smiled as she half-crawled onto the third-floor landing, found her balance, and dug her keys out of her purse, which she had managed to hold onto by some miracle. She took a few swaying steps down the hall they shared with one other apartment. Oh, Danica was going to be so pissed that Bryce had not only had fun without her, but that she'd gotten so wasted she couldn't remember how to read, or the code to the building. The flickering first light stung her eyes enough that she again squinted them to near darkness and staggered down the hall. She should shower if she could remember how to operate the handles, wash off her filthy, numb feet. Especially after she stepped in a cold puddle beneath some dripping ceiling pipe. She shuddered, bracing a hand on the wall, but kept staggering ahead. Fuck. Too many drugs. Even her fey blood couldn't clear them out fast enough. But there was her door. Keys. Right, she had them in her hand already. There were 6. Which one was hers? One opened the gallery. One opened the various tanks and cages in the archives. One opened Syrinx's crate. One was to the chain on her scooter. One was to her scooter. And one was to the door. This door. The brass keys tinkled and swayed, shining in the first lights. Then, blending with the painted metal of the hall, they slipped out of her slackening fingers, clanking on the tile. Fuck. The word was a long exhale. Bracing a hand on the doorframe to keep from falling clean on her ass, Bryce stooped to pick up the keys. Something cool and wet met her fingertips. Bryce closed her eyes, willing the world to stop spinning. When she opened them, she focused on the tile before the door. Red. And the smell. It wasn't the reek of before. It was blood. And the apartment door was already open. The lock had been mangled, the handle wrenched off completely. Iron. The door was iron, and enchanted with the best spells money could buy to keep out any unwanted guests, attackers, or magic. The spells were the one thing Bryce had never allowed Danica to purchase on her behalf. She hadn't wanted to know how much they'd cost, not when it was likely double her parents' annual salary. But the door now looked like a crumpled piece of paper. Blinking furiously, Bryce straightened. Fuck the drugs in her system. Fuck fury. She'd promised no hallucinations. Bryce was never drinking or polluting her body with those drugs ever again. She'd tell Danica first thing tomorrow. No more. No more. She rubbed her eyes, mascara smearing on her fingertips, on her blood-soaked fingertips. The blood remained. The mangled door, too. Danica, she croaked, if the attacker was still inside. Danica? The bloody hand, her own hand, pushed the half-crumpled door open farther. Blackness greeted her. The coppery tang of blood and that festering odor slammed into her. Her entire body seized, every muscle going on alert, every instinct screaming to run, run, run. But her fey eyes adjusted to the dark, revealing the apartment. Or what was left of it. What was left of them. Help. She needed to get help, but she staggered into the trashed apartment. Danica? The word was a raw, broken sound. The wolves had fought. There wasn't a piece of furniture that was intact, that wasn't shredded and splintered. There wasn't a body intact either. Piles and clumps were all that remained. Danica, Danica, Danica. She needed to call someone, needed to scream for help, needed to get Fury or her brother, her father, needed Sabine. Bryce's bedroom door was destroyed, the threshold painted in blood. The ballet posters hung in ribbons, and on the bed. She knew in her bones it was not a hallucination what lay on that bed. Knew in her bones that what bled out inside her chest was her heart. Danica lay there, in pieces. And at the foot of the bed, littering the torn carpet in even smaller pieces, as if he'd gone down to finish Danica, she knew that was Connor. Knew the heap just to the right of the bed closest to Danica, that was Thorn. Bryce stared and stared. Perhaps time stopped. Perhaps she was dead. She couldn't feel her body. A clanging, echoing thunk sounded from outside, not from the apartment, but the hall. She moved. The apartment warped, shrinking and expanding as if it were breathing, the floors rising with each inhale, but she managed to move. The small kitchen table lay in fragments, her blood-slicked, shaking fingers wrapped around one of its wooden legs, silently lifting it over her shoulder. She peered into the hall. She took a few blinks to clear her contracting vision. The goddamn drugs. The trash chute hatch lay open. Blood that smelled of wolf coated the rusty metal door, and prints that did not belong to a human stained the tile floor, aiming toward the stairs. It was real. She blinked over and over, swaying against the door. Real, which meant from far away she saw herself launch into the hallway, saw herself slam into the opposite wall and rebound off of it, then scramble into a sprint toward the stairwell. Whatever had killed him must have heard her coming and hidden inside the trash chute, waiting for the chance to leap out at her or slink away unnoticed. Bryce hit the stairs, a glowing white haze creeping over her vision. It blazed through every inhibition, disregarding every warning bell. The glass door at the bottom of the stairs was already shattered, people screaming outside. Bryce leaped from the top of the landing. Her knees popped and buckled as she cleared the stairs, her bare feet shredding on the glass littering the lobby floor. Then they ripped open more as she hurtled through the door and into the street, scanning. People were gasping to the right, others were screaming. Cars had halted, drivers and passengers all staring toward a narrow alley between the building and its neighbor. Their faces blurred and stretched, twisting their horror into something grotesque, something strange and primordial, and this was no hallucination. Bryce sprinted across the street, following the screams, the reek. Her breath tore apart her lungs as she hurtled along the alley, dodging piles of trash. Whatever she was chasing had gotten only a brief head start. Where was it? Where was it? Every logical thought was a ribbon floating above her head. She read them as if following a stock ticker mounted on a building side in the CBD. One glimpse, even if she couldn't kill it. One glimpse, just to ID it, for Danica. Bryce cleared the alley, careening onto bustling Central Avenue, the street full of fleeing people and honking cars. She leaped over their hoods, scaling them one after another, every movement as smooth as one of her dance steps. Leap, twirl, arch. Her body did not fail her, not as she followed the creature's rotting stench to another alley, another and another. They were almost up the Eastros. A snarl and roar rent the air ahead. It had come from another connected alley, more of a dead-end alcove between two brick buildings. She hefted the table leg, wishing she'd grabbed Danica's sword instead. Wondering if Danica had even had time to unsheath it. No, the sword was in the gallery, where Danica had ignored Jasiba's warning and left it in the supply closet. Bryce launched herself around the alley's corner. Blood, everywhere, everywhere. And the thing halfway down the alley, not veneer, not one she'd encountered before. A demon? Some feral thing with smooth, near-translucent gray skin. It crawled on 4 long, spiny legs, but looked vaguely humanoid, and it was feasting on someone else, on a Malachi. Blood covered the angel's face, soaking his hair and revealing the swollen, battered features beneath. His white wings were splayed and snapped. His powerful body arched in agony as the beast ripped at his chest with a maw of clear, crystalline fangs that easily dug through skin and bone. She did not think, did not feel. She moved, fast like Randall had taught her, brutal like he'd made her learn to be. She slammed the table leg into the creature's head so hard that bone and wood cracked. It was thrown off the anvil and whirled, its back legs twisting beneath it while its front legs, arms, gouged lines in the cobblestone. The creature had no eyes, only smooth planes of bone above deep slits its nose. And the blood that leaked from its temple, it was clear, not red. Bryce panted, the Malachi male groaning some wordless plea as the creature sniffed at her. She blinked and blinked, willing the light seeker and Mirthroot out of her system, willing the image ahead to stop blurring. The creature lunged, not for her but the angel, right back to the chest and heart it was trying to get to, the more considerable prey. Bryce launched forward, table legs swinging again, the reverberations against bone hitting into her palm. The creature roared, blindly surging at her. She dodged, but its sharp, clear fangs ripped her thigh clean open as she twisted away. She screamed, losing her balance, and swung upward as it leaped again, this time for her throat. Wood smashed those clear teeth. The demon shrieked so loudly that her fey ears nearly ruptured, and she dared all of one blink. Claws scraped. Hissing sounded, and then it was gone. It was just clearing the lip of the brick building the Malachi lay slumped against. She could track it from the streets, could keep it in sight long enough for the Ox or 33rd to come. Bryce had dared one step when the angel groaned again. His hand was against his chest, pushing weakly, not hard enough to stop the death bite from gushing blood. Even with his fast healing, even if he'd made the drop, the injuries were sustainable enough to be fatal. Someone screamed in a nearby street as the creature jumped between buildings. Go, go, go. The angel's face was so battered it was barely more than a slab of swollen flesh. The table leg clattered into a puddle of the angel's blood as she dove for him, biting down her scream at the burning gash in her thigh. Someone had poured acid onto her skin, her bones. Unbearable, impenetrable. Darkness swept through her, blanketing everything within, but she shoved her hand against the angel's wound, not allowing herself to feel the wet, torn flesh, the jagged bone of his cleaved sternum. The creature had been eating its way into the heart. Phone, she panted. Do you have a phone? The angel's white wing was so shredded it was mostly red splinters, but it shifted slightly to reveal the pocket of his black jeans, the square lump in them. How she managed to pull out the phone with one hand was beyond her. Time was still snagging, speeding, and stopping. Pain lanced through her leg with every breath, but she gripped the sleek black device in her wrecking hands, her red nails almost snapping with the force as she punched in the emergency number. A male voice answered on the first ring. Crescent City Rescue. Help, her voice broke. Help. A pause. Miss, I need you to specify where you are, what the situation is. Old Square. River, off the river, near Signet Street. But that was where she lived. She was blocks away from that. Didn't know the cross streets. Please, please help. The angel's blood soaked her lap. Her knees were bleeding, scraped raw. And Danica was... Miss, I need you to tell me where you are. We can have wolves on the scene in a minute. She sobbed then, and the angel's limp fingers brushed against her, torn knee as if in comfort. Phone, she managed, interrupting the responder. His phone, track it, track us, find us. Miss, are you... Track his phone number. Miss, I need a moment to... She pulled up the main screen of the phone, clicking through pages in a haze until she found the number herself. 112-03-0577. Miss, the records are 112-03-0577, she screamed into the phone, over and over. 112-03-0577. It was all she could remember, that stupid number. Miss, holy gods, the line crackled. They're coming, the responder breathed. He tried to inquire about the injuries on the mail, but she dropped the angel's phone as the drugs pulled her back, yanked her down, and she swayed. The alley warped and rippled. The angel's gaze met her, so full of agony she thought it was what her soul must look like. His blood poured out between her fingers, and it did not stop. Well, that was an intense chapter. So that was chapter 5, and I'm angry. That was an intense chapter. So tomorrow is the last and final chapter that I will be reading to you guys, so it'll be chapter 6, and then I will let you guys know if I am going to keep finishing the book. But yeah, I'm like in some weird kind of haze now, like processing everything that just happened. So yeah, that was chapter 5. Not cool, Sarah. Not cool. Alright, guys, I will see you tomorrow for chapter 6. See you later.